Hey guys, tonight we ride a train not bound by tracks or timetables, but by the unconscious winds of sleep itself. You're standing alone on a glowing platform in the middle of nowhere. Maybe it's underground, maybe it's hovering gently in the air, but there's no ceiling above you, just a deep velvety sky studded with unfamiliar stars. The air feels still but heavy, like it's holding its breath for something. Around you, old-fashioned lampposts flicker with soft amber light, casting long shadows that don't quite match your movements. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while we wait for the train that knows no schedule, post your location and your local time in the comments. I always love knowing where you're tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The platform beneath your feet hums slightly, like it's alive or at least aware. A small brass sign on a pillar says Line Oniric Express. No arrival board, no clock, not a single soul in sight, but you don't feel afraid. It's as if something just outside your memory tells you you've done this before. You shift your weight. There's no luggage because you don't need any here. What would you even pack for a dream? The sound comes first, not a chugging or a whistle, but a low harmonic vibration, like someone dragging their finger around the rim of a crystal glass. Then, through the glowing mist at the edge of the platform, you spot movement. A train slides into view, its shape too smooth for metal, too elegant for machinery. It has no wheels. No steam, it simply glides suspended a few inches above the track like it's hovering on pure intention. The doors ease open with a soft sigh. You glance behind you, no one's there, but somehow you know this moment is yours. The first step is quiet, like sinking into warm memory foam. The interior glows with a twilight palette, deep mauves, soft blues, and just a touch of golden thread lining the seats. There's no conductor, no passengers yet. A small sign above the entrance reads, "You may sit anywhere, no destination required." As the doors seal shut, the platform vanishes in a shimmer as if it never existed, or maybe it never did. The train begins to move, but there's no jolt, no sound, only the sensation of drifting forward. You stare out the wide windows, the stars have shifted. They twinkle lazily as though they're watching you back. Strange constellations shimmer, one looks like a key, another like a teacup. The carriage is warm, inviting, with curved wooden accents and velvet upholstery that smells faintly of lavender and something nostalgic like a library or your grandmother's attic. You lean your head against the window. Outside, shapes begin to form in the mist. They don't look like cities or forests, they look like pieces of other people's minds. A glimpse of a ballet slipper, a floating bicycle, a tree made of pages. You blink and they're gone. Above you, a speaker crackles softly to life. A voice that sounds like your own whispers. Dream sequence initiated. First connection forming. There's a sense of gentle excitement, not adrenaline, not fear. Like that feeling before the curtain rises at a play you've never heard of, but already love. And just as you start to wonder what dream is coming next, the door ahead of you slides open. You rise from your seat without hesitation. The moment feels natural, as if you've rehearsed this scene in a dream you forgot upon waking. The floor beneath you ripples slightly, like walking across the surface of a shallow moonlit pond. As you step through the sliding door, the scenery changes, not in jerks or blinks, but in a gentle fade, like the dissolving of one watercolor into the next. Now you're walking down a cobblestone street that curves in impossible ways. Some of the stones float slightly off the ground, defying gravity, but not logic. Tall townhouses loom around you, but instead of windows, they have mirrors. Each mirror reflects not your image, but versions of you as different people. An elderly artist with paint on your cheeks, a child with a backpack too big a version of you wearing a crown of feathers and holding a scroll of unreadable text. It's quiet except for the gentle clink of a wind chime hanging in midair, with no apparent source. You follow the curve of the path until you reach a round plaza. In the center is a statue, but instead of stone, it's made of folded paper pages from books in languages you don't understand. It moves slightly in the breeze, rustling as if whispering secrets to itself. A woman in a wide-brimmed hat sits beside it on a bench, her eyes closed. You're not sure if she's dreaming or part of the dream. She opens one eye as you approach and says, "This one's about a boy who lost his voice and traded it for a melody." You nod, though you don't know why. The moment feels symbolic, but you're too relaxed to analyze. Behind her, the sky is beginning to change, not from day to night or vice versa, but into a different kind of sky entirely. This one is painted with wide brushstrokes, textured like canvas, where clouds are ink blots slowly morphing into sleeping animals. You sit on the bench, not next to the woman, she's already gone, but in the same spot. Your fingertips touch the wood and come away dusted with glittering pollen like dream residue. A cat appears beside your foot, though you didn't see it arrive. It has no eyes, just a soft golden glow where they should be. It purrs like a cello string. In the air above you, a paper kite appears, flying without a string or hand to guide it. It loops in slow circles, trailing a ribbon made of handwritten notes, reminders maybe, or lyrics to songs never sung. One note drifts down and lands in your lap. It reads, "You have always known the way." Just then, a soft bell rings. Not like an alarm, more like the sound of a spoon tapping the edge of a teacup. It comes from behind you, and when you turn, the plaza is gone. You're standing in a greenhouse now, but the plants inside are unlike any you've ever seen. Ferns that hum lullabies, sunflowers that tilt toward your gaze instead of the sun vines that braid themselves in mid-air. In the center of the greenhouse is a small train platform, moss growing between the planks. The Oniric Express waits steaming quietly, though there's no engine. You step aboard again. The carriage is different this time. The windows are round and porthole-like. You take a seat by one and look out to see a vast ocean made of mist. Floating on it are islands shaped like beds, hammocks, books, and once, just once, a spoon big enough to cradle a person. A little screen on the wall lights up and reads, "Next dream, a lighthouse that hums old songs." You smile. Of course it does. And just like that, the train glides forward again, carrying you into someone else's sleeping world. You don't remember falling asleep. Yet, somehow the train is gliding more smoothly now, quieter, slower, as if respecting the rhythm of breath and heartbeat. The mist outside begins to thin, revealing the outline of a dark sea. Not the stormy kind, though. This sea is calm, like velvet poured over glass, shimmering with distant lights beneath the surface. The carriage changes again, not visually, but atmospherically. The upholstery softens. The lighting warms to a candle glow. The walls, once wood-paneled, now resemble fabric stitched with celestial patterns that pulse faintly like lullabies for the eyes. It smells like chamomile and fresh ink. You blink once and find that your seat has turned into a cushioned chaise, and a blanket of stars drapes itself across your lap. Outside, a lighthouse looms into view. Not just any lighthouse. This one floats gently on the water, like a boat that forgot how to sail. Its bricks are painted shades of twilight, deep purples, soft blues, faint pinks. And from its top, instead of a blaring warning beam, it emits a low melodic hum, like a cello played underwater drawing you closer. The train sows and eases into a stop beside a tiny floating dock. You step off instinctively barefoot now. The dock creaks beneath you, but it doesn't feel unsafe. It feels like an invitation. As you ascend the spiraling stairs of the lighthouse, each step sings a different note. You're walking through a scale, and by the time you reach the top, a song has played itself through your soles. Up here, the air is thick with a sound you can't quite describe, somewhere between a lullaby and a memory. It buzzes in your teeth and behind your eyes, but it's pleasant, like the feeling of recalling a dream just as it slips away. Inside the lantern room, there's no light source, just a circle of chairs. each occupied by someone dreaming. They sit motionless like statues of thought. One is a child holding a balloon shaped like a fish. Another is a man with a pocket watch in his mouth ticking softly. A woman nearby hums without moving her lips, and as she does, the walls around her shimmer with shifting images, fields of wheat spinning tops a clock with no hands. You choose an empty chair. The moment you sit, your breath matches theirs. The humming changes. The walls begin to move not like rotating panels, but more like curtain folds shifting in wind. You realize they're showing memories or possibilities or maybe just good guesses. Your own memory appears faintly in the haze, something forgotten. A room filled with feathers, a jar of sand labeled Tuesday, and a voice that once whispered your name in a library. The dream isn't clear, but its warmth is. It wraps around your shoulders like a shawl. Suddenly, the woman who hums stops. Everyone else exhales together and the moment freezes. A golden key floats into view from nowhere and lands in your lap. It's engraved with looping, unreadable letters. Beneath it, your chair begins to descend slowly, like a ride in an old department store elevator. You return to the base of the lighthouse and step outside again. The sea sparkles brighter now, as if the dreams above have charged it with light. In the distance, the train waits for you once more, already opening its door like a yawning cat. You smile, tuck the key into your pocket, which you now have, even if you didn't before, and reboard. The train hums its approval and begins to move again. Outside, the world is changing once more. The sea melts into desert, and the mist gives way to air filled with floating orbs, each carrying a tiny diorama of someone's dream. A birthday party for shadows, a chess game played with live birds, a picnic under upside-down rain. The screen lights again. Next dream, the library of imagined books. You lean back, the star blanket still tucked around your legs, and let the rhythm of the tracks become the rhythm of your breath. The train hums along gently like an old lullaby with no clear beginning or end. You feel your body sway slightly with each soft curve in the track, and somewhere in the distance a bell chimes, not urgent but familiar, like the sound of your grandmother calling you in for supper on a warm summer night. The scenery outside has shifted again. The dream sea and lighthouse are gone, replaced by wide rolling hills made entirely of parchment. Yes, actual parchment, aged paper covered in faded ink, rustling gently in a breeze you can't feel. Letters drift through the sky like leaves. You spot a capital A tumbling past, followed by a slow pirouetting comma. They seem to be heading somewhere with purpose. The train slows. You don't feel it stop, not exactly. It simply sighs into stillness. The door slides open and a golden light pours in thick as syrup and twice as warm. You step out into the hush of what appears to be a vast library. Not a normal one, though. No building holds this place. The shelves are planted into the earth itself, stretching endlessly over gentle hills. Trees grow between them, and vines curl around the bindings of books, as if both have grown together for centuries. You begin to walk. There are no labels, no numbers or categories, only books. You take one from the shelf. It has no title. When you open it, you find it contains only one sentence. You once dreamed of flying, and it almost worked. Curious, you try another. This one is filled with drawings of places you've never been, but they feel familiar, like echoes of something your ancestors whispered about. You flip through faster and realize that the drawings move when you're not looking directly at them. In your periphery, tiny characters wave, castles crumble and rebuild, ships sail into the edges of the page. A woman stands at a nearby shelf. Her robes are stitched from book covers and her hair is tied back with twine bookmarks. She doesn't speak but gestures for you to follow. As you walk with her, she places a hand gently on each spine you pass, and the books glow faintly under her touch. She stops at one especially large volume and pulls it out with effort. She offers it to you. On the cover, your name appears, not printed but written in looping handwriting that looks strangely like your own. You open it. The pages are blank at first, but gradually, text begins to appear. The ink doesn't write itself, it emerges as if unerasing from long ago. It tells the story of a night just like this one. You on a train stepping into strangers' dreams. A floating lighthouse, a key in your pocket, and now a library that contains every book never written. You look up from the page and she is gone. You are alone in a corridor of bookshelves so tall they vanish into mist. You turn in a slow circle. Every direction looks the same, but somehow you know which way to go. You follow a tiny fluttering bookmark that flits through the air like a paper dragonfly. It leads you to a wooden archway where a sign reads, "To the Reading Garden." The arch pulses softly and lets you pass through. On the other side is a clearing, filled with chairs, hammocks, beanbags, even floating cushions, each occupied by a dreamer reading silently. Some books glow, others hum. One floats above a reader's lap, turning its own pages. You choose a mossy armchair under a willow tree that smells faintly of cinnamon and rain. A book is already waiting for you on the armrest. You open it to a random page and begin to read, but the words echo in your head as your own thoughts. You're not sure if you're reading, dreaming, or remembering. The lines blur like watercolor in the rain and you let them. A chime sounds, you close the book. It returns itself to the shelf without help. The path opens ahead once more, and at the end the train awaits. The platform here is made of stacked books, their covers worn smooth by many feet. You step aboard. The carriage feels even cozier now, as though each dream you enter weaves a new softness into the cushions, a new hush into the walls. The screen flickers to life. Next dream, a garden that grows lost time. You smile, lean into the seat, and feel the train shift beneath you, sliding gently into the next strange, beautiful dream. The screen goes dark again, and the familiar hush returns. Outside the window, color begins to change. Less gold, more blue now, like the hour just before dawn, where everything is washed in cool shadows but not yet cold. The train clicks into a soft rhythm, and once again you find yourself carried into the unknown with surprising comfort. As the scenery clears, you find yourself gliding into a garden unlike any you've seen. It's vast yet intimate, with walls made not of stone but soft vines thick with wisteria. There's something unusual in the air. It smells faintly of honey and old clocks. The platform where the train stops this time is a cobbled path lined with flower beds, and blooming between the stones are tiny ticking watches instead of weeds. They hum quietly in unison like cicadas at dusk. You step off the train and realize your own footsteps are muffled, as if the air itself respects the silence here. A sign welcomes you, Garden of Lost Time. Please return what was forgotten. You walk forward, and as you do, the plants around you respond. A low bush blooms with alarm clocks. Ivy coils up lampposts and occasionally whispers something just out of earshot. Somewhere to your right, a tall tree is shedding hourglasses like fruit, each one filled with shimmering sand that seems to move backward. A gardener appears, not a typical one. This person wears a robe stitched from patchwork calendars, and instead of shears, they carry a lantern with a candle that flickers slightly behind the glass. They nod as you approach and hand you a folded paper. It's blank, but soon words begin to scrawl themselves across it, curling in elegant loops. Here you will find every moment you misplaced. You glance up, puzzled. The gardener only smiles and motions toward the nearest hedge maze. The maze is alive, not just in the way plants grow, but in the way they remember. As you walk, the walls of the hedge reshape behind you, closing off for where you've been, and gently suggesting where you should go. It feels less like being trapped, and more like being cradled in a large leafy memory. Around a corner, you come upon a pond. Instead of water, its surface is made of glimmering snapshots, moments that seem suspended in time. Children blowing bubbles that never pop. A cat napping mid-pounce. A teacup balanced perfectly on the edge of a windowsill. You peer closer and suddenly the scene shifts. There in the silvery ripples is a version of you, younger perhaps, or maybe just more unfinished, sitting under a tree with someone you used to talk to for hours but somehow drifted away from. The image flickers and the memory softens like fog evaporating in sunlight. You don't feel regret here. That's the strangest part. Instead, you feel a quiet appreciation, like the moment is saying thank you for remembering. You continue on now, moving past benches, overgrown with creeping time, literal time you suspect giggling at your own pun. On one bench, a sundial slowly spins counterclockwise, casting long shadows across an old book someone left behind. You flip it open. It's a journal filled with entries you never wrote but definitely meant to. One entry reads, "Planted a seed of intention, forgot to water it." Another says, "Waited too long to say something important, but maybe it was heard anyway." You press the pages closed gently, as if not to wake them. The garden curves into a spiral, now narrowing into a clearing where hundreds of clocks hang from trees. Some chime, others tick out of sync. One cuckoo bird has given up entirely and simply lounges on a branch with a miniature martini. The gardener reappears this time, offering you a tiny seed. "You may keep this," they say. "It's from the moment you forgave yourself and forgot to celebrate." You nod, not entirely understanding, but accept it anyway. The seed is warm in your hand, pulsing gently with something alive, maybe hope or a nap. The path becomes clearer now, winding back toward the train, which waits just where it always seems, to like a loyal pet or an understanding friend. You glance back once at the garden of lost time. One of the clocks winks at you. You wink back. Climbing aboard again, the train feels a little warmer, a little more familiar. As you settle in, the screen lights up with the next message. Next dream, a market where everyone trades feelings. You smile. Whatever that means, it sounds exactly right for tonight. The train hums into motion once more, wheels tracing invisible paths across a dreamscape that folds and unfolds like pages in a bedtime story. You watch the windows darken again. A soft velvet curtain of twilight drawn across your view, but the darkness doesn't last. Soon it lightens to a dusky amber glow, the kind you see in late afternoon markets somewhere between golden hour and memory. The train eases into a stop. The platform this time is made of patterned tiles, each one different, some smooth like ceramic, others bumpy like pressed tin, and a few shaped like hearts or open palms. You step off and hear the sound of distant conversation, a quiet chime of laughter and the rich rustle of fabric. Ahead, you enter a sprawling open-air bazaar. It pulses with warmth and possibility. The air smells like cinnamon and lavender, but every time you breathe in again, the scent changes like memories being shuffled softly. A banner flaps above the arched entrance. "Welcome to the Empathy Exchange." It looks like any other market at first, rows of booth lanterns swinging gently from strings overhead, but the signs give it away. Joy 2 teaspoons for a memory. Mild regret on clearance. Borrow courage, return before sunrise. Every emotion, every sensation is available to trade. No currency is used here. Everything costs only what you're willing to let go. You pause at a stall where a vendor in a cloak made of patchwork velvet is arranging jars on a shelf. Each jar glows faintly with different hues, soft gold for contentment, a curious swirl of indigo and rose for wistful longing. The vendor offers you a smile and says, "Trade me a dream you've outgrown and I'll give you something unexpected." You think about it. What dream have you outgrown? You murmur the memory of a childhood wish to become a famous magician or perhaps a cloud tamer, something charmingly unrealistic. The vendor nods as if it were a precious offering and gently hands you a thimble of peace. You move on, wandering through the rows. One booth has a sign that reads, "Unspoken apologies, whisper one, take one." Another lets you taste drops of emotion from tiny crystal spoons, all surprise, bittersweet closure. You try a spoonful labeled sunlight on skin after sadness. It tastes like a smile forming without you knowing. Near the center of the market stands a large fountain. Instead of water, it flows with shared laughter collected from stories told under blankets and inside pillow forts. A child runs past you, giggling, holding a balloon labeled excitement before a first kiss. You smile, remembering. An older woman waves you over from her shaded stall. Her stand is simpler than the others, just one item. A heavy folded coat made entirely of patience. "It's been waiting for you," she says kindly. You try it on and it fits perfectly, not too tight, not too loose. It even has a pocket full of forgiveness stitched inside. There's music too, of course. Not loud, just a wandering tune played on something that sounds like a flute mixed with a sigh. A nearby performer serenades a group of passers-by with a song composed entirely of remembered lullabies. In a corner booth, you find something unexpected, a mirror labeled, "Not what you look like, what you feel like." You peer into it and see yourself, but softer. You look like a sigh after finishing a long book, or like tea cooling in the hands of someone who's finally found silence. It's oddly comforting. You notice that no one in the market hurries, no one argues, even the bargaining is gentle. "I'll give you a little relief if you give me that lingering self-doubt." "Deal," someone says, grinning. You sit down on a cushioned bench shaped like a thought bubble and sip a cup of contentment steeped with a hint of vulnerability. Someone next to you leans over and whispers, "This is the place I go when I need to feel like a person again." You nod. You understand completely. And just like that, a soft bell rings from above. You look up to see a flock of paper birds flying across the sky, signaling that the train is ready again. You rise slowly, reluctant to leave this market of the intangible. As you pass the last stall, a vendor hands you a tiny jar labeled simply "Kindness for later." You tuck it in your coat. Back on the platform, you wave goodbye to the garden of feelings. The train greets you with open doors and a whisper of steam. The seat feels softer now, as if it knows you better. You take your place, the jar of kindness warming slightly in your pocket. The screen ahead flickers once more and offers the next destination. Next dream, a lighthouse that listens to your thoughts. You exhale, your body settling into the rhythm of the rails, your mind stretching gently into the fog of what's to come. The train lulls forward with a familiar hum, the sound now as comforting as a whispered lullaby. The windows are misted over, though you notice faint outlines moving behind them, shapes of cliffs perhaps, or trees bending toward the tracks as if curious. Then, in a blink, the mist clears and reveals a coast bathed in cool blue twilight. The train slows to a stop at a solitary platform perched on the edge of the sea. There's no town, no station building, only a winding stone path that disappears into the rising fog. You follow it, and the world grows quieter with every step. Your footsteps make soft crunches on damp pebbles muffled by moss and the weight of waiting. Ahead, a lighthouse rises from the cliffs, not tall and whitewashed like you'd expect, but curved, slightly built from driftwood glass and memory. It leans gently inland as if it's listening to the secrets carried by the wind. You push open the door and are greeted not by a keeper but by silence. The inside feels alive like a breathing room. Soft creaks, whispering wind, and an occasional tick that might be from a grandfather clock or an old heart. There's a sign hanging near the stairwell, "Speak freely." The lighthouse is listening. You're not sure what that means. But as you start climbing the spiral stairs, each step feels lighter, as if your thoughts are being unspooled behind you. You speak without trying, not out loud, but somewhere inside. You recall a moment of guilt you've carried too long, a question you never asked, a joy you never expressed. And the walls shimmer faintly, absorbing every wordless thought like warm ink on old paper. Halfway up, you find a small room filled with messages etched into the wood. Tiny carvings from past dreamers. "I forgave her here. I still miss that dog. Tomorrow I will sing in public." None of them are signed and none need to be. You run your fingers along the smooth etchings and feel connected to everyone who came before you. It's a strange intimacy knowing the lighthouse keeps their thoughts not to judge or remember, just to hold. At the very top is the lantern room, but instead of a glass bulb or rotating beam, there's a floating orb of soft light glowing with a hue you can't quite name. You sit beside it and suddenly you hear your own thoughts, but in someone else's voice. It's a gentle voice, kind, slightly amused, like an old friend remembering something you don't. It repeats your worries, but in a way that makes them feel smaller, manageable, like dust settling. You speak a question aloud this time, something simple like, "What if I fail again?" The light flickers in response, and for a moment you feel warmth spread through your chest, as if the lighthouse itself had given you a hug made of candlelight. A moment later you feel a tug in your pocket. You reach inside and find a folded paper crane. It wasn't there before. You open it. The writing inside says, "Failure is only a pause in a story you still control." You smile. A bookshelf lines one wall, filled with blank books labeled only with dates. You take one out, today's date, and open it. To your surprise, it's already filled word for word with everything you've thought, said, or felt in the last hour. You close it slowly, realizing that your dream has been journaling itself. Behind you, a chair creaks. You turn, half expecting to see someone, but it's only the breeze nudging the fabric. Still, it feels like company. You stand gazing out the window. The sea stretches far below, dotted with floating lanterns, each one glowing softly, each one perhaps belonging to another dreamer like you somewhere, sitting by their own window, wondering if anyone else dreams this way. A distant foghorn sounds not loud, just a hum through the bones of the lighthouse. The train is calling you back. You descend slowly, the walls still listening, still warm. You add your own carving beside the others. "I needed this. Thank you. No one will know it was you, but the lighthouse will. That's enough." As you step back outside, the fog curls around your shoulders like a shawl. The stone path leads you once again to the platform, and the train awaits, glowing softly like an old friend waiting in the dark. Back in your seat, you find something tucked beside you, a smooth stone etched with a simple word, "Heard." The train shudders forward, the lighthouse slipping into the mist, its light pulsing gently behind you like a heartbeat. The screen flickers. Next stop, a city built on forgotten songs. You lean back, hands resting on the etched stone, and let your thoughts drift like ships toward the horizon. The gentle rhythm of the train starts again, click, clack, and your breath sinks with it. You gaze out the window where the mist peels away to reveal a golden plain stretched beneath a lilac sky. The colors don't quite obey the usual rules of daylight or dusk. This place glows with a hush. It's the kind of light painters dream about but never quite catch. Ahead, the train glides into a vast open-air station with no roof, just columns holding up vines of glowing flowers. The sign overhead reads in curling script, "The City of Forgotten Songs." You step down and the air immediately shimmers with a low melodic hum. It's not music exactly, not at first, but the longer you listen, the more it weaves itself into form. Like a lullaby you've heard 100 times and never once remembered. Strolling into the city, you pass buildings made of shifting glass and honey-colored stone. They seem to breathe, almost ripple, as if the structures themselves are humming softly in tune with the air. The streets are paved with old sheet music notes scrawled by hands that must have lived lifetimes ago. Some pieces are familiar echoes of a childhood piano recital, or the jingle of a toy you once loved. Others seem completely foreign, but stir something strange in your chest, like the ghost of a memory not yet yours. A boy walks past with a kite trailing behind him. But instead of a tail, the kite carries a chorus, an actual chorus, as in several small voices suspended mid-air, humming in harmony as the kite dips and twirls in the breeze. He nods at you like this is perfectly ordinary. You enter a square where people sit in silence on the low cushions, eyes closed, faces tranquil. In the center is a grand fountain. Instead of water, it spills musical notes in glowing streams. They don't fall, but float upward, curling lazily into the sky like incense. One person hums softly, and the fountain responds, its stream shifting key to match them, then gently composing a harmony. You try it too, just a tiny humming note, and feel the resonance echo through your chest. It's like being hugged by a sound. An older woman sits beside you. Her hair is silver and braided with tiny bells. She smiles and says, "This is where forgotten songs come to rest." Not lost, just misplaced. They wait for someone to hum them back. You nod, understanding more than words convey. Nearby, a music store of sorts catches your eye. Inside, instruments rest on the velvet pillows, flutes shaped like feathers, violins carved from driftwood drums that seem to pulse without being touched. You lift a small, glimmering harp the size of your hand, and without plucking a string, it begins to play a tune you once heard in a dream when you were 9. You'd forgotten it entirely, and yet here it is. The shopkeeper waves and instead of a price tag hands you a feathered bookmark. Every song is a story. "Keep this one safe," she says. You tuck it into your coat pocket. Outside again, you follow a narrow alleyway where songbirds perch on laundry lines. But these birds don't chirp, they whistle symphonies, tiny beaks conducting symphonic pieces you feel more than hear. You sit on a bench near a wall, inscribed with lyrics from lullabies across centuries and continents. There are lullabies in languages you don't understand yet somehow. As you run your fingers over the text, you begin to hum their tunes. Your body remembers what your brain never learned. A child approaches with a stringless ukulele and offers it to you. "Play it," they say. You laugh gently, "I don't know how." The child shrugs. "That's okay. It plays you." And so you try. Holding it in your lap, it begins to hum softly, and you feel an old emotion rise, grief maybe or longing, but the sound doesn't make you sad. It translates it, lifts it gently, and sends it out into the golden air. Above, lanterns begin to rise, each one pulsing with a single note. As they float higher, they harmonize like stars humming lullabies. You take one last look at the square, the fountain now trickling softly in a minor key. A melody you can't quite name dances in the back of your mind. You return to the platform and the train is waiting, always waiting. Your seat is warm. There's now a music box resting on your windowsill, its key already wound. You open it and it plays the same tune your mother used to hum when you were half asleep in the back seat of the car. The train pulls forward. This time the conductor tips their hat, a dreamlike figure, with a cloak made of concert programs and ticket stubs. They whisper, "Next stop, a library that writes its own books." You lean back, clutching your feathered bookmark, and close your eyes. The music doesn't end, it just fades into the rails. The train hums forward into a pocket of lavender mist, your head resting lightly against the window. The world outside is a blur of warm tones, plum, burnt umber, soft gold. Just as your eyelids begin to drift shut again, the train slows with a musical hiss. You're not sure when it stopped entirely, but you find yourself stepping off into a world of absolute stillness. No wind, no chirping insects, no footsteps, just a patient hush. Before you stands a library the size of a mountain. Its spires spiral endlessly upward, like the twisted roots of an ancient tree, and its windows glow from within with soft, flickering candlelight. At its base is a small door with no handle, only a bronze plaque etched with the words, "Here the shelves remember more than you do." As soon as you lay your hand against the wood, the door sighs open with a creak that sounds suspiciously like an exasperated yawn. Inside, the air smells of old paper and rain on stone. There are no librarians, but the place feels watched in a kind way. The bookshelves move on their own. They stretch and rearrange like polite serpents shifting to let you pass. You wander in deeper, A scroll floats towards you, unassisted, unrolling itself to reveal a map of dreams you've had since childhood. There's the night you imagined your bed could sail through the sky. There's the recurring dream of the hallway that never ends. There's a tiny dot labeled that one dream where you were a spaghetti detective. You blush a little. The scroll folds itself into a paper bird and flits away, leaving you giggling softly. You enter a dome-shaped room where books are still being written by invisible hands. Quills float in midair, scribbling fervently across parchment. One book writes in glowing ink that evaporates as you try to read it. Another writes in sand, yet another writes on a piece of toast. You decide not to question that one. You find a shelf labeled Dreams People Forgot Before They Woke Up. Each book here is slim, wrapped in clouds and warm to the touch. One glows when you hold it. The spine reads A Train Ride with No End and Too Many Blankets. There's a table in the center of the room, and on it sits a book with your name on the cover. Not your real name, but the one you secretly wish had been yours all along. You open it. The pages are blank. A sign nearby reads, Go ahead, tell us something. You lean in and whisper a memory that doesn't quite exist. A forest where the leaves were made of feathers. A fox that taught you how to waltz. A town where people traded laughter for moonlight. As you speak, words bloom across the page in your handwriting, but softer, as if drawn by a sleepier version of you. You try to close the book, but it gently resists, just for a second, as if asking, Are you sure you're done? You are for now. Leaving the dome, you pass through a hallway lined with portraits, not of people but of emotions. You pause at a canvas titled When You Remembered the Smell of Your Grandmother's Scarf. It's not an image so much as a feeling rendered in brushstrokes. You find yourself blinking tears without knowing why. Another painting shows a house with lights on in every window. The label reads what you thought home would feel like. You reach the library's heart, a spherical chamber lit by floating candles. In the center is a massive open book suspended in air, its pages slowly turning. As each page moves, a soft breeze rolls through the room, scented faintly like cinnamon and cedar wood. You realize this book writes everyone's shared dreams, the ones we don't remember but all visit, the communal subconscious. A moth flutters by and lands on your shoulder. It whispers, You've left more stories here than you think. You nod and the library gently guides you back toward the entrance. Not with arrows, but through a subtle shifting of walls and walkways, almost like it's cradling you back to the door. Before you step out, a small envelope appears on a pedestal. It's addressed to you again. Inside is a folded scrap of starlight. No message, just light. Back aboard the train, the scent of old paper lingers on your coat. In your seat, you find a library card tucked into the cushions. The expiry date simply reads, When the dreaming ends. You smile, placing it gently in your pocket, and glance out the window as the train departs. Up ahead, the clouds part to reveal a sky that curves not into space, but into something that looks like a memory of summer. The conductor walks past again. This time he hums softly, and you swear the melody matches the library's breeze. He pauses at your seat. Next stop, he says, the island that only appears when you forget what you're looking for. You rest your chin on your hand. Perfect, you whisper. The train glides silently toward its next destination, curving along invisible rails suspended in an endless twilight sky. The lights inside your carriage dim slightly, casting everything in a warm, honeyed glow. Outside the window, stars drift like lanterns caught in slow motion. You hear a chime overhead. The conductor doesn't announce this stop. He just tips his hat as you pass him on the way out. You descend the steps into fog not thick or ominous, but more like a blanket of breath on a cold morning. As the mist clears, you find yourself on a narrow stone path surrounded by a silvery sea. It isn't water, not exactly. The surface ripples like melted glass, glimmering with shifting reflections, faces, eyes, trees that only exist for a second, vanishing when you try to focus. The path leads you to a small island made entirely of mismatched objects, a teacup holding a flower that sings softly to itself, a pair of boots with tiny wings that flap every few minutes, a staircase leading nowhere, and a piano missing its keys but playing melodies when touched by wind. In the center stands a tall arch made of driftwood and feathers. Above it is a wooden sign that reads "Lost and Not Found." You walk through and the world changes in a blink. Now you're in a market square, but none of the stalls sell goods. One vendor is offering forgotten words in glass jars, words like Snunder's News and Blisk, apparently expressions for naps taken in sunbeams or the sound of socks on soft wood floors. Another stand invites you to trade your sighs for tiny bells that chime whenever you smile. A little boy runs past, chasing a balloon shaped like a question mark. He giggles when it pops and reassembles itself midair. A woman with eyes like dusk is selling bottles of first kisses that never happened. You pass a stall labeled "Things You Meant to Say But Didn't." Inside notes are pinned like butterflies, tiny heartfelt confessions scribbled on napkins, matchboxes and leaves. One reads, "I saw you dancing in the kitchen, and it made my whole day." Another, "I was proud of you even then." You take a deep breath, feeling something loosen in your chest. In the middle of the square is a spinning carousel, but instead of horses, it features seats shaped like memories. An old couch, a favorite sweater, a swing you remember from a playground that might not have existed. You hop onto a seat shaped like your childhood bedroom and gently spin as music box notes fill the air. The ride ends with a soft bell. A door appears in the carousel's side and you step through into a garden at dusk. The garden is wild but comforting. Flowers bloom upside down, stars hang from branches, and the air smells like rain on warm pavement. In the garden's heart, there's a pond with water like mercury. On its surface, words form and fade in slow succession. You kneel down and read them aloud. What you lost will find you again, just not the way you expected. A soft breeze circles around you, and you suddenly remember a friend's laugh you hadn't thought about in years. It wraps around you like a scarf. You sit beside the pond for a while, watching images form and ripple, a paper plane flying into a sunset, a dog waiting on a porch, a bicycle with no rider rolling down a hill. They feel like yours, even if they aren't. Eventually, you stand and brushing dream dust from your knees. You find a trail of glowing pebbles leading you back through the mist. On your way, you pass a tiny creature shaped like a comma. It winks at you before bouncing away. The train waits at the edge of the fog. You climb back aboard, and your seat is warm again. A cup of tea you didn't order rests on the windowsill, still steaming. As the train pulls away, you look back. The island dissolves, not into water, but into light golden flickering and faintly humming. The conductor reappears with a folded paper. He hands it to you and walks on. You open it. It's a list titled "What You'll Forget Tomorrow." The entries include that you smiled in your sleep, the sound of the moon breathing, the name of the feeling when your heart almost remembers. You fold it back up, tuck it into your pocket, and lean back. Ahead, the stars part like curtains revealing a single glowing door in the sky. The glowing door in the sky grows larger as the train approaches, not opening, but simply allowing the train to pass through it like mist. A strange sensation wraps around you, not discomfort, not fear, just the gentle unmooring of gravity and logic. For a moment, the world bends into the shape of a question, and then everything evens out again. You find yourself in a new compartment, one lined with soft velvet wallpaper in deep indigo. A small brass chandelier sways overhead, though there's no movement in the train. Through the windows, you no longer see sky or stars, but rows of tall bookshelves, endless, silent, majestic. You're riding through a dream library. You walk between the shelves, each tome glowing faintly with its own color. These books aren't written in ink, but in memory. You take one down at random and open it to a page that smells like sea salt and cinnamon. The text shifts with your thoughts, stories that feel as if you've lived them in another life or another sleep. You come across one shelf labeled books you could have written. Titles like The Art of Almost Saying It and A Guide to Nowhere in Particular catch your eye. Another shelf, Dreams Abandoned Too Soon, features only half-finished books, but when you touch them, you hear endings whispered softly into your mind. A tiny desk waits in the corner of the compartment, a lamp lit, casting a perfect pool of amber light. On the desk sits a journal titled For You Tonight. You sit and open it. Inside, someone, or perhaps some version of you, has already begun to write. Dear traveler, this place remembers what you forget. It holds the echoes of all the things you almost noticed. Let yourself be curious. You smile, and as you write a few lines of your own, the train begins to slow. You walk to the rear of the compartment and find another exit, this one shaped like a mirror. When you step through, you're instantly transported into a dream made of music. The sky is an orchestra, clouds shaped like violins, stars chiming like bells. A river flows with soft chords shifting with your breath. You wade in and the water carries you downstream, no effort required. The current plays a gentle lullaby. On the riverbank, birds sit on wires like sheet music. They chirp in harmony, a melody so faint it seems meant only for you. You drift past a group of fish who seem to hum, their scales flickering in rhythm with the stars above. Each blink of light feels like a note you forgot you loved. You notice a girl on the shore wearing a dress made of sheet music. She's dancing not for anyone, not for performance, but for the sheer joy of being unobserved. You wave. She curtsies and vanishes like a skipped note. Eventually, the current takes you to the base of a waterfall that doesn't roar, but sighs. It drops into a pool of silence so perfect it rings like a bell. At the edge, you find a harp with no strings. Still, when you place your fingers in the space between its frame, you play something beautiful. It resonates within you. Somewhere far away, someone else might be dreaming this too. A rowboat waits at the pool's edge, carved from polished night. You step in, and it knows where to take you across the surface of sound and sleep. The oars paddle themselves with measured grace. With every stroke, the river beneath glows, faintly revealing words. Just beneath the surface, tiny secrets like, "You almost told the truth. You forgave them while pretending not to. You still dream about the place that doesn't exist." You exhale slowly. The boat stops beneath an archway made of tuning forks. A quiet chime hums through your body, and a door appears half ajar, inviting. You step through and find yourself back on the train, seated once again. Your cup of tea is warm. Your reflection in the glass smiles before fading. The conductor tips his hat. 2 more stops to go, he says. You nod even though no words are needed. The train pulls out from the musical river world, the notes of its lullaby still echoing gently in your mind, like whispers through silk. The rhythmic chug of the wheels feels more melodic now, as if each rotation keeps time with some unseen clock that runs on wonder instead of hours. As the landscape through the window begins to change, you notice a shimmering fog ahead. It rolls slowly across the tracks, curling like smoke in reverse, as if being gently breathed in by the world itself. The fog thickens until it fills everything. For a moment it feels like the train isn't moving at all, suspended in a dreamless void. But then the lights inside dim just slightly and the fog parts like curtains on a stage. You find yourself looking out at a vast city, but one that couldn't possibly exist in waking life. It's a city built entirely of memories. Towers of childhood homes, floating bridges built from half-remembered conversations, plazas echoing with familiar laughter. Signs hang crookedly above cobbled streets, inscribed in the handwriting of people you once knew. Everything here feels deeply personal yet uncannily shared, as if you and every other passenger on this train had dreamed pieces of it into being over the course of 1,000 nights. You step off the train into a square where it's always late afternoon. The shadows are long, soft-edged, and comforting. Somewhere nearby, a brass band plays a tune you can almost place a mashup of lullabies, old TV jingles, and forgotten favorite songs. At the center of the square stands a fountain. The water doesn't splash, but trickles gently over the edges, whispering things like you mattered more than you thought, and you didn't deserve the silence. On a nearby bench sits an old man reading a newspaper with blank pages. As you pass, he nods as if he recognizes you from a dream he once had. Maybe he does. You wander into a narrow alley lined with doorways. Each one is labeled in gold script. An hour you laughed until you cried, a day you were entirely yourself, the time you almost left but didn't. You open one at random. Inside is a tiny bakery lit by string lights with the smell of cinnamon and clove swirling through the air like perfume. There's a record playing on a turntable in the corner, no vocals, just a warm crackling guitar melody. Behind the counter, a woman with no face and kind hands offers you a pastry that tastes exactly like your favorite memory of childhood. You don't need to speak. She gestures to a guest book with names written in every language imaginable, some in spirals, some upside down, some in dream logic squiggles. You sign your name with invisible ink. As soon as you finish the last stroke, the ink glows briefly, then fades like a smile that lingers just a second too long. Outside, the city continues to breathe around you. You wander past a cinema marquee that reads, "Tonight's feature the day you almost believed." You hear murmured laughter and soft weeping from inside, and something tells you everyone is watching a slightly different film, yet somehow sharing the same plot. Back at the train platform, the fog starts to roll in again. You glance back at the city and see a billboard fading into view, memory lane. Now boarding. You step aboard the train again, and this time the compartment smells faintly of old books and fresh rain. A new passenger sits across from you, a child curled up and asleep, clutching a stuffed animal with a single button eye. You smile, not wanting to wake them, but feel somehow comforted by their presence. The lights dim, a low chime rings, and the train begins to move once more toward a place that doesn't yet exist but already feels familiar. You close your eyes and let the motion carry you. The train now weaves through something that can only be described as dusk, made physical. The windows no longer show distinct scenery, but rather layers of twilight, rich indigos bleeding into soft mauves, brushstrokes of fading gold, shimmering like distant lightning bugs caught in amber. It feels like you're moving through the moment between heartbeats, where nothing changes but everything feels on the edge of becoming something new. You rise from your seat again, this time guided more by instinct than curiosity. The corridor outside is dimly lit by gentle lanterns swaying with the rhythm of the train. Their light pulses softly as if breathing. You pass sleeping passengers with serene expressions, each resting in carriages designed by their own subconscious. One cabin is a floating cloud tent, another resembles a quiet forest glade, a third a cozy reading nook stacked floor to ceiling with books that hum. But it's your hand that finds the next door. You open it into a realm suspended entirely within a tree so vast its branches disappear into a violet sky and its roots seem to hum with the gravity of planets. You're standing on a platform of woven leaves and bark, and around you spiral countless staircases made of knotted vines, some of which shift subtly when you're not looking directly at them. Perched on the branches are floating orbs, dreams you realize not your own, but available to observe. Each one plays a small looping scene when you peer inside. A first kiss in the rain, a child discovering snow for the first time, a quiet goodbye at a foggy train station, a woman dancing alone under string lights to a tune only she hears. One orb shows a man sitting at a desk made of moonlight, writing a letter to a version of himself that never existed. Another glows with the unmistakable warmth of being held by someone who forgave you. You wander higher up the spiral until you find a platform with a bench carved from polished amber. You sit the surface warm beneath you and breathe in air that smells like petrichor and freshly baked bread scents that ground you, though this place has no gravity in the traditional sense. As you sit, the orbs drift closer. You don't touch them, but you feel them touch you, subtle pulses of emotion, wordless reminders of other people's joys, regrets, secrets. It's like watching raindrops collect on glass, separate yet forming quiet patterns together. At some point, a small creature, perhaps a fox, or something fox adjacent, pads up beside you. Its fur shimmers like a nebula, and it has eyes like old mirrors. Without speaking, it hops onto the bench, curls its tail around your arm, and rests its head on your leg. The message is clear: stay as long as you need. And so you do. Minutes pass, or hours, it's hard to tell. The tree, the dreams, the gentle hum of distant memories, they all blend into a cradle of comfort. You feel the aching tension in your chest ease like something heavy being laid down at last. Eventually, the fox uncurls, gives you one last glance, almost smug in its satisfaction, and trots away, vanishing into a fold of bark. You rise lighter now and walk back toward the portal you entered through. Just before stepping through, you glance over your shoulder. The tree pulses once gently like a heartbeat saying goodbye. Back in the corridor, the lights seem even softer. The air tastes faintly of lavender now. You return to your cabin where a folded note lies on your pillow. You open it. You made it farther than most. There's still more to see. Sleep when you're ready. No name, no signature. Just those 3 lines in handwriting that looks eerily familiar. You lie down, the hum of the train beneath you steady and low. Through the window, the sky begins to shift again, from twilight to something that resembles early morning, in a dream where the sun never quite rises. You're not sleepy yet, not quite, but you feel safe, content, and curious about where the tracks might lead next. As you drift in the cocoon comfort of your cabin, the train hums forward through a new domain. This time a dreamscape sculpted entirely from scent and sound. No visuals at first, just sensation. You hear the soft tinkling of wind chimes crafted from seashells, gently brushing against each other. A far-off bell tolls once low and resonant like the heartbeat of the horizon. There's a scent of citrus trees just after the rain mingled with fresh linen, and the tiniest trace of sea salt. Even without looking, you know the train is gliding along a coastline that doesn't exist on any real-world map. Eventually, you step outside your cabin again, barefoot this time, and the carpet beneath your feet has changed now. Soft moss that cushions each step and tickles slightly between your toes. The next carriage has no walls. It's open to the breeze, yet no wind disturbs your hair. The ocean to your right is entirely bioluminescent, glowing with shades of teal violet and soft pink. Each ripple sends a shimmer through the air, as if sound and light are sinking together in secret. Sitting alone in this open carriage is an old man, wearing a coat made of postcards. They flutter gently with the motion of the train. You sit beside him without a word. He offers you a hot cup of something that smells like chamomile and apple pie. The moment you sip it, the world sharpens memories of dreams you forgot years ago, come flooding back. You don't speak them aloud, but you know he hears them anyway. He begins to hum a melody both familiar and entirely new. The sound stirs the surroundings. From the misty horizon, shapes begin to form cities and bottles drifting through the sky bridges of harp strings stretching between clouds and whales, with wings swimming lazily above the tracks. At one point, the old man reaches into his coat and hands you a postcard. On the front is an illustration of a house you used to draw as a child, chimney red roof, crooked little tree in the yard. On the back, in that same strange familiar handwriting, it says, "You dreamt this before you knew how." He stands, gives you a warm nod, and simply walks off the edge of the train, vanishing into a wisp of sea breeze. You don't panic. Somehow you know that's just how his dream ends. The train slows slightly, arriving at a glowing station that appears only as a ripple in the air. A single sign reads, "Transfers to elsewhere available on request." A few passengers disembark, their outlines shimmering like soap bubbles. Others board figures with cloaks stitched from stories, laughter tucked in their pockets, eyes full of galaxies. A woman in a velvet coat joins you, whispering that she's here to visit a dream where the moon sings lullabies. You smile, not even questioning the logic. This is the way of things now. The train begins to move again, picking up speed as it re-enters the tunnel of sound and scent. You rest your head against the mossy seat and close your eyes. A tiny bird lands on your shoulder, made of origami and blinking stars. It chirps once, a note so pure it feels like forgiveness. Around you, the train pulses gently with promise. You are not alone. You never were. Somewhere in the distance, a new dream waits, already unfolding in soft colors and sleepy sighs, ready to be ridden through like pages in a beloved worn-out book. And as your breathing slows and your mind loosens its grip, the story glides forward effortlessly into the quiet that follows understanding. The train coasts gently now, as though it too is beginning to feel sleepy. The rhythm of the wheels against the tracks is soft and steady, like a lullaby written by time itself. Outside your window, the landscape has shifted again, this time to a dream, drawn from childhood. Rolling fields stretch endlessly in every direction, but the colors are slightly wrong in a comforting way. Grass is the color of melted mint ice cream. Trees sway slowly, their trunks a soft lavender, and their leaves look like oversized feathers that rustle with the sound of pages turning. As you sip something warm, you don't remember ordering, perhaps cocoa or maybe cinnamon tea. You spot something off in the distance, a small cottage. It's moving. The cottage glides slowly across the fields on tiny feet like those of a sandpiper bird. As the train draws nearer, you realize the house is searching for what you're not sure, but it seems content, as though just the act of wandering is enough. Smoke curls from its crooked chimney, spelling out snippets of dreams mid-air, flying, school cloud museum book that purrs when opened. You lean your forehead against the cool glass eyes, growing heavier. A tune hums in the background. No one's singing it, yet you know every note. It's the kind of tune that drifts into your head while staring out of car windows on rainy days. The train enters a long arched tunnel made entirely of memories. But they're not just yours, these are the dreams of strangers. Faint silhouettes drift through the dark walls. A woman dancing barefoot in a marble hallway. A child feeding marshmallows to a dragon with polka dots. An old man fishing for stars with a golden thread. As the tunnel deepens, the air thickens with reverie. Every breath you take feels like inhaling stillness. You hear whispers, not voices exactly, but impressions. Long forgotten hope, quiet giggles, the creak of floorboards in a home that never existed, but somehow feels like it always has. The tunnel opens to a final destination, a station carved from night itself, where the sky is ink black, but speckled with glowing fireflies instead of stars. A lone attendant in a velvet vest waves as the train glides by. His hat is too big and his smile is sleepier than yours. You pass through, slowly savoring the way your thoughts begin to float like soap bubbles in a warm bath. Nothing tugs anymore. No urgency remains. Every worry, every unfinished to-do list has dissolved somewhere in the last several carriages. You look down at your hands. They're glowing slightly, not brightly, just enough to remind you that this entire journey came from something inside you, that you are and always have been a dreamer, and dreamers make good travelers. The train finally begins to slow. A new cabin awaits behind you, filled with the bed made of clouds and a pillow that hums ocean sounds. You step inside and lie down fully, the first time in what feels like forever. The walls flicker gently with shadows of all the dreams you visited tonight, and others too, ones you've yet to see. You pull a blanket over yourself. It smells like the best day you ever had, even if you don't remember the details. And just as your eyelids slip closed and the last lights dim, the conductor's voice, soft, kind, and barely there, whispers. Sweet travels, we'll see you in the next dream. And now, as the story finds its final quiet place, the train fades gently from the track and dissolves into the soft folds of your imagination. Breathe in slowly. Let the colors of every dream settle like dust in morning light. Let the movement still. There's nowhere else to be now. Nothing else to hear. Just the memory of places that never were, but somehow always belonged to you. Your limbs grow heavier, your mind lighter. That old melody, remember, drifts by again, soft, familiar, the kind that wraps around your thoughts like a favorite blanket. The sky in your dream dims to a muted gold, stars blinking their good nights above your brow. Even the air seems slower now, thicker like honey or molasses. And somewhere far away, another train is already boarding. Not yet for you, but soon, when you're ready. For now, rest easy. You've ridden the dreams of strangers, and in doing so found something entirely your own. Good night, dreamer. Sleep well.